You are not lacking, you are obeying. This is the first reversal you must make if you ever wish to break the cycle. What you call lack is not a condition, it is not a circumstance, it is not even a test, it is an agreement, a contract you made, often silently, with a false appearance. And until you revoke that contract, no amount of prayer, effort, strategy, or positive thinking will deliver you. Because your obedience is louder than your desire, and the law responds not to what you want, but to what you serve. Florence wrote, "There is no truth in lack." And when she said that, she was not offering comfort, she was issuing correction. Because if there is no truth in lack, then every time you describe your condition as not enough, you are not reporting reality. You are reinforcing an illusion. And illusions gain their power not from being true, but from being obeyed. You've been taught to speak lack with the tone of truth. You say, "I can't afford this," as if it's a fact. You say, "Things are tight this month," as if it's your only option. You look at your bank account and you echo it with your mouth, your thoughts, your tone, and the law obeys what you echo. But truth is not in the number. Truth is in the law, and the law has never changed. The law says supply is unlimited. The law says you are divinely provided for. The law says appearances reverse when the word is spoken with faith. So why do you still serve the opposite? Because you were trained to. You were trained to believe the visible, to submit to whatever stands in front of you. If the money is gone, you say you're broke. If the invoice is unpaid, you say you're behind. If the deal is delayed, you say it's not working. You interpret delay as denial and appearance as finality. But Florence made it clear, appearances are not truth. Appearances are tests of loyalty, and most people have already failed them before they even speak. You think you're being realistic when you describe lack, but realism is just fear in a polished coat. Realism is the trained instinct to obey what you see instead of what you know in spirit. It is worship of the material. It is betrayal of the invisible. It is the slow suffocation of faith disguised as being responsible. And what has it earned you? More confirmation that appearances were right, because you keep speaking their name. Let me make it plain. If you're still describing what you don't want, you're still in agreement with it, and you will never break what you secretly obey. There is no neutral speech. You are either authorizing law or echoing illusion. Every time you say, "I hope it works out," you are passively suggesting it might not. Every time you say, "I don't know how," you are testifying against divine intelligence. Every time you say, "We'll see," you are holding back your authority and handing it to uncertainty. But authority is not earned. It is spoken. Law does not ask how you feel. It listens to what you declare. And if you keep declaring lack, no matter how politely, no matter how casually, no matter how unconsciously, you are reinforcing the very thing you claim to resist. You were not created to describe. You were created to decree. That means you must stop saying what is and start saying what is written. The truth is not the number in your account. The truth is not the number on the bill. The truth is not the delay, the silence, the missing opportunity. The truth is there is no truth in lack. The truth is divine supply is ready now. The truth is your word creates the reversal. Not your tears, not your trying, not your good heart, your word. So speak as one who governs, not one who guesses. You say, "I'm still waiting." No, you're still obeying the illusion. You say, "It hasn't come yet." No, it hasn't been commanded. You say, "I'm doing my best." But your best is still reporting appearances instead of reversing them. Florence called it the law of reversal for a reason, because reversal requires conflict. You must confront what you see. You must contradict what you feel. You must override the data with decree. This is not delusion. This is dominion. You are not here to be inspired. You are here to speak what must replace what is. And if you do not, you have no right to complain about the world you keep renewing with your words. If you want to reverse it, speak like it's already done. If you want to break it, stop describing it. If you want supply, serve the law, not the lie. Say this now, not as affirmation, but as authority. There is no truth in lack. I break agreement with appearances. I speak divine supply. I authorize abundance by law. Don't whisper it. Don't test it. Don't wait until you feel it. Speak it like Florence taught, as law. And if you're ready to break lack in your life, write it. Post it, comment it. Not for attention, not for engagement, for alignment, for obedience, for sealing the new contract, because lack is not real. But your agreement with it is. And until you break that agreement, it will keep appearing like it belongs. It doesn't. Now speak. They told you to be realistic. They praised you for noticing problems. They called it maturity when you adjusted your expectations. But what they were really training you to do was to obey lack. From childhood, you were rewarded for describing the problem, not reversing it. You were encouraged to be cautious, humble, safe. You were warned against speaking too soon, celebrating too early, expecting too much. You were taught to observe, to wait, to conform. And slowly, obedience to reality replaced obedience to law. You didn't call it fear, you called it wisdom. You didn't call it lack, you called it awareness. You didn't call it disobedience, you called it humility. And so you learned to shrink your tone. You learned to lower your voice around wealth. You learned to hide your desire behind disclaimers. You told yourself it's okay to want more, as long as you don't sound arrogant, as long as you still sound broke, as long as you still sound obedient to the visible. But you cannot inherit what you're afraid to sound like. You cannot walk into wealth while keeping your tone tied to fear. Florence wrote, "Never voice lack or limitation. Speak only abundance and perfect supply." Not as a strategy, as law, as a verdict that reshapes what the world reflects back to you. But you've been trained to do the opposite. You say things like we're managing, or we're just getting by, or times are hard, but we're grateful, as if adding the word gratitude to your confession of struggle cancels out the agreement. It doesn't. Gratitude doesn't break a lie. Law does. You've made it socially acceptable to sound small. You've made it polite to confess defeat, as long as you smile while doing it. But the law is not sentimental. It doesn't respond to emotional tone. It responds to spiritual authority. And right now, your tone is testifying against your desire. You keep repeating the lie, and because you do, the law must obey you. Not because it wants to harm you, but because it is neutral. Because it was created to mirror not your hopes, but your instructions. And your instructions are embedded in every casual phrase you speak when you're not paying attention. So let's pay attention now. Every time you say, "I'm not sure," you weaken the supply. Every time you say, "We can't afford that," you seal lack. Every time you say, "That's too much," you declare your threshold, and the law makes it your ceiling. These aren't just words, they're permissions, they're contracts, and worst of all, you believe they're just facts. But Florence said, every man is a law unto himself. That means your voice carries jurisdiction. Your tone is not a report, it's a decree. And when you speak from obedience to the world's facts, you revoke your right to receive anything above them. This is the lie you keep obeying, that describing reality is harmless, that naming your condition is neutral, that pointing out what's missing doesn't affect what's coming. But it does. It always does. The law is a mirror, and when you stare into it while muttering defeat, it has no choice but to echo the image you've announced. You're not broke. You're just still obeying the sentence that keeps you sounding that way. You're not stuck. You're just in rhythm with a voice that has no authority, but still occupies your mouth. The tragedy is not that lack exists. The tragedy is that you keep lending it your words. And words are the womb of creation. Florence didn't say think positive. She said speak. She didn't say wait for better days. She said declare, because nothing changes until something is spoken under law. So the lie must be broken at the level it was sustained through repeated speech. Not through trying, not through effort, through reversal. Right now, I'm not asking you to feel abundant. I'm asking you to speak what breaks the lie. Not because it sounds nice, but because it ends the contract. Say this: I do not describe lack. I do not obey appearances. I do not echo fear. I speak supply. I authorize reversal. And if that sentence feels strange in your mouth, it means the lie has lived there too long. Speak it again without apology. Speak it like you mean to dismantle something. Then write it, because when the hand joins the tongue, the body agrees. Then seal it, because when you comment under command, the algorithm of heaven moves. Lack is not sustained by numbers. It's sustained by loyalty. And your loyalty is proven by what you're still willing to say. So say the opposite. Break the rhythm. Reverse the lie. You were never asked to report the world. You were told to transform it. Florence didn't teach you to echo conditions. She taught you to reverse them, to stand in front of what looks like a wall and speak a door into it, to look lack in the face and say, you do not belong here, to see delay, denial, dryness, and declare their undoing. Not because you're ignoring reality, but because you are overriding it with something higher. That is the law of reversal. And until you activate it, you are not walking in power. You're just describing your prison. You think your words are harmless because they're accurate. You think saying, I don't know where the money's gonna come from is just honesty. You think describing what's not working is simply being aware. But spiritual law is not a courtroom. You're not rewarded for being observant. You're not praised for being realistic. You're held accountable for your decree. You will not inherit what you admire. You will inherit what you say. And if you continue to say what is, you will continue to relive what is. The law does not say, speak what you feel. It says, speak what must be. And until your voice becomes a weapon of reversal, it is still under the influence of appearance. Florence wrote, you must learn to control your imagination, for man's only enemy is doubt and fear. But fear doesn't always come screaming. Sometimes it whispers through your casual language. Sometimes it hides inside your tone of resignation. Sometimes it dresses up as humility or responsibility. But fear has a sound, and every time you speak from that sound, you authorize delay. You think the delay is out there. It isn't. It's in your sentence, the one you said on autopilot, the one you said just to fill the silence, the one you said because it's what your family always says. Money doesn't grow on trees. You have to be careful. Let's not get our hopes up. These phrases don't reflect caution. They reflect a refusal to speak reversal. And every time you use them, you're anchoring your future to your past. Let's get one thing clear. You cannot speak both. You cannot reverse and report. You cannot command and confess. You cannot declare abundance and still describe limitation. The law does not recognize mixed signals. It multiplies whatever is most consistent. And for most people, what's most consistent is obedience to the visible. So you ask, what do I say when I see lack? Say what the law says. Say what overrides it. Say what doesn't come from fear. Say what breaks the rhythm. You say, I am fully provided for, under grace, in perfect ways. Not because you feel it, because it's true in the realm that matters. And truth doesn't begin in the bank, it begins in the word. The appearance will tell you it's too late. You say, divine timing is perfect. I am right on schedule. The bill will say, you're behind. You say, I pay all obligations now through the law of abundance. The silence will scream, it's not coming. You say, the gate of supply opens for me now. Not once, not as a ritual, but as a reversal, a permanent correction to every unspoken agreement that's been hiding in your subconscious. Because that's where most lack begins. Not in the world, but in the place where you decided to keep quiet. In the moment you felt foolish speaking what didn't match your current condition. In the hour you chose to say nothing rather than say something that would sound delusional. But let me be blunt. What you call delusion is often just dominion trying to find its voice. You are not here to echo the facts. You are here to speak the law. And if what you see doesn't match what is written, you don't adjust your declaration. You repeat it, you double it, you say it again until what's in the room bows to what's in your mouth. That's the power Florence handed you. Not passivity, but precision. Not observation, but override. She said, the invisible forces are ever working for the man who is always pulling the strings himself, though he does not know it. You have always been creating. You just didn't know which law you were feeding, but now you do. And with that knowing comes responsibility. You are responsible for every reversal you've avoided by staying silent. You are responsible for every moment you described instead of declared. You are responsible for every time you asked for supply, but still spoke like a servant of scarcity. The law is not cruel, but it is exact, and it does not apologize for returning to you what you repeatedly announced. So what will you announce now? Say this: I reverse the appearance. I declare supply. I speak not what is, I speak what must be. Say it as someone under authority. Say it as someone no longer deceived. Say it as someone who has revoked their loyalty to the visible and aligned with the eternal. You're not here to negotiate with facts. You're here to replace them. You're not here to find a way to feel better. You're here to break the cycle. So speak, not from fear, not from lack, not from memory, from law. Because when your voice aligns with heaven, the illusion has no choice but to dissolve. And it begins, not with feeling, not with proof, but with a sentence. One sentence strong enough to reverse everything you thought was true. Every word you speak is a door. It opens or it closes. It grants access or it blocks entry. It either leads you deeper into lack or walks you straight into supply. And whether you realize it or not, you are always walking through the world your own sentences have constructed. Every phrase is a frame. Every tone is a threshold. Every declaration is an invitation or a dismissal. You don't walk into new levels by force. You walk into them by word. Florence wrote, "Man's word is his wand filled with magic and power." She meant it literally. What you say shapes what answers. What you decree determines what is allowed to arrive. And that means your mouth is not ornamental. It is architectural. Every sentence is a building material. Every repetition lays a foundation. And many of you are still living inside a house you never meant to build, because you didn't realize the door had your voice print on it. You think the door is outside of you. You think it's an opportunity, a person, a job, a client, a break. But the door was always language. You were waiting for movement in the world, but the world was waiting for instruction from your tongue. It cannot open what you haven't spoken. It cannot deliver what you haven't commanded. It cannot reflect what you haven't first framed. So now you ask, why won't it shift? And I answer you plainly. It cannot shift until your sentence does. The words you casually release into your mornings have more power than the plans you spend hours developing. The sentences you mutter under breath while driving carry more weight than your written goals. The moment you describe yourself as behind, the law must obey and establish distance. The moment you say, I'm just trying to survive, the gate of abundance narrows. Not because it wishes to, but because it is responding to your decree. Let's be honest. You've said things you didn't mean, and now you're living things you didn't want. But the law doesn't care if you meant it. It cares if you authorized it. There is no asterisk on spiritual command. The energy behind your words may be tired, vague, uncertain, but if the syntax matches fear, then fear is what gets the key. You gave it your voice. It used your door. This is why Florence warned against idle words, not because of superstition, but because every sentence is surveillance. It reveals who you obey, who you trust, what kingdom you serve. And if your tone continues to mirror the visible, you will never enter the invisible. You will stand outside the blessing with a mouth full of borrowed worry, speaking as if the wall is permanent. But it's not permanent, it's programmable. It responds to voice, and your voice was never meant to echo it. Your voice was meant to override it. You keep asking for a breakthrough, but what if I told you the real breakthrough is not an event, it's a phrase? One that sounds nothing like your current reality. One that refuses to ask for permission. One that tears a hole in the pattern you've been repeating for years. Florence didn't say, whisper until it changes. She said, speak the word and then walk in it. That means the door opens when your mouth dares to disagree with the room you're standing in. When your tongue says something your senses cannot yet confirm. When your sentence becomes the seed and not the summary. But most people don't speak like this. They wait. They want to be sure. They want to avoid sounding foolish. They want external confirmation before internal authority. So they end up repeating the obvious, reinforcing the visible, reporting the temporary. And then they call it truth. But truth doesn't come from description. It comes from decree. This is why your door hasn't opened, because you keep knocking with fear when you were told to speak with force. You keep announcing conditions when you were commanded to declare law. You keep reporting the obstacle instead of naming the passage. You are not here to explain the wall. You are here to become the voice that dissolves it. So what are you saying in the hours no one hears you? What tone are you releasing before the invoice is paid? What phrase are you repeating when you open your wallet? Every word is a door. Some swing wide, others bolt shut, and only you know which one you've been standing in front of, reciting the wrong key. Now you know why Florence insisted. There is always an open door for the obedient. Not the clever, not the prepared, the obedient. And obedience does not mean effort. It means alignment. It means choosing to say what doesn't match your feelings. It means speaking the sentence that reverses what you've spent a lifetime rehearsing. If you want the door, stop looking at it. Speak it. Say this: I speak as one with a key. I do not knock in fear. I do not wait for signs. I speak the word and I enter the door. Write it if you believe it. Post it if you want to walk through it. Repeat it if you're ready to stop standing outside the blessing you've already been assigned. You've waited long enough. Now speak as one who walks in. There's always a sentence that ends the cycle. Not a paragraph, not a journal entry, not 1,000 affirmations, a sentence. One line that comes not from intellect, not from fear, not from habit, but from law. Spoken not as request, but as verdict. And when it is spoken in full spiritual jurisdiction, it does what effort never could. It breaks the pattern. Florence wrote, "The spoken word releases power." That means there is power that remains bound until you say the sentence that authorizes its release. You may be praying, waiting, believing, but if you haven't spoken the reversal out loud, the law cannot execute the shift. Heaven does not move on silence, it moves on order, and order must be spoken. This is where most people fall short. They believe in the shift, they expect the shift, but they don't speak the shift. Instead, they narrate the problem. They give language to the delay. They give oxygen to fear. They talk themselves into more cycles by giving voice to the very patterns they claim to want freedom from. And the law, bound to obey the dominant decree, simply repeats what they authorize. You've said too many things that sounded spiritual, but were soaked in doubt. You've whispered affirmations like apologies. You've spoken half-truths wrapped in nervous hope. And you've called that faith. But the law doesn't move on hope. It moves on command. Florence was clear. You are not hoping for abundance. You are declaring it. You are not asking to be delivered from lack. You are revoking its access. You are not explaining the symptoms. You are delivering the sentence that removes their legal ground. And that sentence must come from one who no longer consents to lack. You cannot break what you still explain. You cannot reverse what you still fear. You cannot override what you still secretly expect. The sentence that shatters lack is not about tone. It's not about performance. It's not even about certainty. It's about authority. You speak it not because you feel powerful. You speak it because you are aligned. Because the word is already settled in heaven and you have chosen to agree with it. So what is the sentence? It is not long. It is not poetic. It is not vague. It is this: I break lack now. You don't say it to feel better. You don't say it to test what happens next. You say it because it ends the agreement. You say it because you're finished negotiating with insufficiency. You say it because you are the enforcer of spiritual law in your own realm. And lack only lives where it is permitted. Speak it plainly: I break lack now. Not in theory, not tomorrow, now. Not as a request, as a finalization. Not because you're tired, because you're in position. Let me be clear. This sentence will offend every part of your nervous system that has grown attached to struggle. It will irritate your mind. It will provoke your memory. It will shake every agreement that's ever been silently signed in your subconscious. But that's the point. That's how you know it's working. The sentence isn't meant to soothe you. It's meant to sever. Because lack is not sustained by numbers. It's sustained by belief. It's sustained by language. It's sustained by atmospheric loyalty to a pattern of speech that makes insufficiency feel normal. And once you renounce that language, the structure holding your financial limitation collapses from within. You don't need more effort. You don't need more strategy. You need a sentence that knows what it's doing. I break lack now. Say it out loud, not from the throat, from the spirit, from the part of you that has tired of describing survival and is ready to name dominion. Say it again until your body flinches. Say it again until your logic pushes back. Say it again until something in the room recognizes that the jurisdiction has changed. This isn't about convincing God. This is about telling lack it no longer has a host. I break lack now. You can write it in the comments to seal it. You can post it where your old fear used to live. You can repeat it every time you see a number that tries to speak louder than truth. But however you choose to use it with this understanding. It is not a phrase, it is a sword. And you must learn to wield it until lack has no place left to land. The moment you stop tolerating lack in your language, it loses legal ground in your life. So stop flirting with it, stop explaining it, stop calling it your story. Break it now. You'll forget all of this when fear returns. You'll forget the sentence, you'll forget the teaching, you'll forget that supply has never left you. Because fear doesn't wait for logic, it interrupts it. It doesn't ask for permission, it knocks through the body, not the mind. And when it does, it will disguise itself as urgency, responsibility, intelligence, realism. But it's none of those things. It's the voice of a lower law trying to seduce you back into obedience. That's when the ritual begins. Not the ritual of candles and music, the ritual of reversal, the one you perform in your car, in front of the mirror, at your desk, in the parking lot, after the conversation that shook you. Right after you checked the number, right after the delay, right after the silence. That's when the law wants to know, will you speak or will you surrender? Because the moment of fear is not a punishment. It's a door, a fork between two realms. Either you obey the appearance and collapse back into memory, or you obey the word and break the illusion. And the difference between those two paths is often 10 seconds of speech. A sentence that interrupts the trance, a phrase that breaks the agreement, a declaration that forces your nervous system to remember, I do not serve this. Florence said, fear is man's only enemy. It is faith inverted. That means fear isn't just an emotion. It's a reversal of trust. It's you putting your belief back into the visible, into the deadline, into the bill, into the voice of your mother or boss or memory. But the ritual is how you take it back. You take it back with breath, with tone, with posture, with words. The ritual does not begin when things improve. It begins when the lie gets loud. You don't wait for peace to speak peace. You speak peace in the storm. You don't wait to feel abundant. You speak supply into the vacuum. You don't wait for fear to calm. You interrupt it with jurisdiction. Because fear isn't asking for your permission to speak. It never has. So why are you still waiting for courage to say what the law already settled? Do not wait. When the fear arrives, say the sentence. When the number scares you, say the sentence. When the circumstance shakes you, say the sentence. And say it like law. Not to comfort yourself, but to establish the realm you live in. Because your nervous system may still believe in struggle. Your history may still remember lack. But your spirit knows the truth. And the ritual is how you let your spirit lead. You say, I break lack now. I speak supply now. I obey divine law now. And you say it until the atmosphere obeys your voice more than your voice obeys the atmosphere. You don't need to feel it. You need to mean it. You don't need to sound powerful. You need to sound legal. You don't need to explain what triggered you. You need to overturn it. Because every moment of fear is an altar. You will either offer your obedience to the visible or your dominion to the law. You will either bow or you will break the trance. And the way you break it is with the ritual. You keep waiting for your external to change. But the ritual begins when you speak while the external remains the same. That's when the door opens. Not because the facts agreed, but because the law was reactivated. Let me be clear. This is not about coping. This is not about emotional regulation. This is not about telling yourself a better story. This is about who gets to be in charge when the fear shows up. This is about what words get the microphone when your hands start shaking. This is about whose law you invoke when your logic breaks down. So don't wait until you're calm. Don't wait until you've journaled. Don't wait until the weekend. Say it in the parking lot. Say it on the elevator. Say it with the envelope still in your hand. Say it with the bill still unpaid. Say it before the facts have had time to reorganize themselves. Because that's when it counts. That's when the spirit sees that you're no longer obedient to fear. That's when the law begins to reroute everything around you to match what you've just said. Because in that moment, you didn't just speak from faith. You governed. And once you govern the moment must obey. There comes a point where you stop asking. Not because you're bitter, not because you've given up, but because you've remembered who you are. Because you've looked around at everything you once obeyed. Every bill, every delay, every empty account, every conversation built on fear, and realized none of it ever had jurisdiction. None of it ever held power unless you named it as real. And now you revoke it. You revoke the right of lack to be your teacher. You revoke the right of fear to be your atmosphere. You revoke the right of memory to be your God. Because there is only one law, and it begins when your mouth says so. Florence did not say to explain the situation, she said to reverse appearances. And reversal is not soft. It is legal. It is violent in the spirit. It is a shift so deep that everything you used to identify as normal becomes foreign. It is you waking up and realizing that the voice that has been narrating your finances, your limits, your survival, your struggle, was never yours. It was inherited, it was installed, it was trained into you, and now it has been evicted. The moment you speak from law, the lie has no more home. You've tried waiting, you've tried earning, you've tried deserving. Now try governing. Govern your tone, govern your gatekeeping. Govern your tongue like it is the lever that opens realms, because it is. Florence didn't say use your word to describe. She said use your word as your wand. That means your word is not opinion. It is enforcement. You are not the victim of lack. You are the enforcer of law. And law begins when you speak as if it already governs what you see. Not because you need to fake it, but because the moment you choose law, you announce a new court. One where appearances no longer give the final word. One where past data no longer dictates future outcome. One where the tone in your voice now carries the weight of heavenly structure. That is not superstition, that is spiritual government. And you are not a citizen waiting for divine approval. You are the authorized voice through which divine order is restored. So say it plainly. I do not ask, I command. You're not commanding people. You're not commanding the universe to bow to ego. You are commanding alignment. Alignment with what has already been written in divine law. Alignment with your original jurisdiction as one who names what must be. You've been asking for too long, pleading, negotiating, hoping. But hope without decree is passive rebellion. It keeps you in the waiting room of your own life, watching while others who speak with conviction step into realms you only wrote about in journals. Today, that ends. Lack ends where law begins, not because lack ran out of energy, but because you revoked its right to stay. Say it. I do not obey appearances. I do not echo fear. I do not repeat the old sentence. I speak reversal. I declare supply. I enforce divine law. Say it even if your voice shakes. Say it especially when fear flares. Say it until heaven recognizes that you are no longer looking for help, you are issuing command. Because heaven doesn't reward effort, it responds to authority. Florence never gave you a set of affirmations to repeat for comfort. She gave you language to realign worlds. So now, speak like someone who governs. I do not ask, I command. It is done. And when you say it this time, don't say it for relief, say it for record. So the realm hears, so the gate shifts, so the law knows that you are no longer waiting, you have entered, and lack will not follow you here.